Hi, I'm Peter Lee from Interact Technology, and today I'm going to be talking about a blockchain strategy for the medical industry, specifically for specialist doctors. So let's start with talking about the current state of affairs in the world. Currently, specialist doctors, in order to find information relevant to their work or a specific case that they're looking for a solution, they can actually look at a various number of websites, ranging from journal sites to associations and whatnot. Each one of these websites actually has a collection of information all stored in their databases, allowing the users to actually search for relevant material. However, the problem is all these websites are all disparate, they're all over the place, and so therefore for a doctor to actually search for something, they have to actually go to multiple places to actually find what they actually want. There doesn't seem to be any centralized global repository of all this information. Additionally, to actually submit material, published papers to these websites, it actually has to be of a reasonable quality. As such, the actual document submitted has to go through a bit of a peer review process, which is quite time consuming, and in order to do that, it consumes a lot of time, and I guess because of the time consumed, the actual websites actually or services actually require a bit of a fee to process and distribute and share, including royalty payments and tracking and whatnot. So it is actually quite costly. And I suppose some of these websites, because they actually are quite professional, they're unlikely to actually want to release material that isn't of a certain quality, and as such it's quite limiting. So if doctors actually have information that they wish to share with their peers within the same hospital or in a different state or even in a different country, they have to actually create this material of a certain quality. At the moment, what they do is they might discuss it within a hospital. They might have meetings every week and whatnot. They might actually create the material and then email them to their colleagues to share. But unfortunately, this isn't actually anything formal, and a lot of this information is lost. Once it's actually discussed and whatnot, it might actually just exist on a doctor's hard drive and then be forever lost, which is unfortunate. So the Interact world. At Interact, I guess the sole purpose of Interact is about discovering unknown information. And the Interact system actually allows pretty much any material, whether it's publication quality or ad hoc created material, so just a Word document collectively created by individuals within a hospital, or just individual specialists talking to patients and whatnot. But if they think it's valuable information to share, they'd actually create the document and then share it. As I mentioned before, it's kind of like you wouldn't have to actually create publication quality material, but it could be just created as a PowerPoint or a Word document or a video or an audio recording of a session or relevant information. But all this material can be uploaded to the Interact system and effectively shared pretty much instantly at any time to just about anyone, which is the advantage of the Interact system. But I guess the question is, can we improve on this? Is there anything else that we can improve, whether it's the journal sites or associations or the Interact system? I guess the question is, what if the information, whether it's a published piece of material or an ad hoc Word document or a video, you could definitively prove the ownership of these files were to a specific doctor, and the actual published document could be verified without a doubt that this is the document that was submitted for sharing. And what if the documents that were actually submitted and shared could be tokenized in some way, whereby anything submitted could be worth a number of tokens, and if the quality was actually better, for example, up to a publication quality, a document, then more tokens could be received. And I guess the tokens could actually be used as an exchange mechanism, so that doctors could then use these tokens to obtain an exchange for other shared pieces of material, and possibly obtain better quality published material for more tokens. And indirectly, I guess you can say, it incentivizes the doctor. If they don't have time, then I guess they get a few tokens for their published valuable pieces of information. But if they actually spend time and commit to it, they can actually maybe exchange for more tokens. So it's a bit of an incentivization sort of like mechanism for the doctors themselves to improve the quality if they have time. And what if there was a system of record whereby any organization, whether it's the journal clubs or the associations or the Interact system, whereby all these entities could contribute to a centralized or a centralized global a system of record, whereby all the information could be searched for from a doctor's point of view. And that would be fantastic, because they wouldn't have to actually go anywhere to any one specific site to actually search for information. They could actually go to a portal which has access to the central repository of all this information, and then they can get it. That'd be fantastic. I mean, actually save the doctors lots of time, and time is money, and I guess at the end of the day, the patients actually benefit as well, because they actually get better care. And similarly, what if the sharing and distribution of this information could be recorded as well? This could actually be quite useful. It could give individual doctors a sense of satisfaction that the effort that they've put into a publication or a piece of work has not only shared the information, but has actually created and definitively proved that it's far-reaching and reached a number of peers within the community of their same specialty. Another benefit could be, what if you had such a sharing mechanism and there was a situation where there was a World Health Organization epidemic or pandemic, and information needs to be shared amongst people of a certain specialty to be aware of such a thing, and to actually have a mechanism that records the sharing and distribution of all this material propagated to individuals around the world. What if you could have such a thing? Well, I guess the answer is we can. And having a blockchain strategy could potentially solve all these problems. It's not actually a replacement for all these disparate sites and companies like our own, but it'd be actually a complement to it. It would actually complement the technologies to enhance the service for the doctors and ultimately benefit the patients as well as the doctors. It would be a distributed system, because blockchain is a distributed system. It's immutable, so everyone who contributes, the authors of the actual material, can be tracked back to the individual entity, whether it's for a credit or whether it's for any other reason. And being a distributed system, I guess, allows people to not have to worry about who owns this information, because it's actually distributed amongst doctors, I guess, for doctors. So I guess there's no fear of any organisation or entity or website actually no longer existing, because I guess companies come and go. But if we could create a system whereby the information that can be searchable by doctors can exist forever, that's one of the benefits of blockchain. It can actually retain this information forever after. And because it's distributed, it's naturally sort of, I guess, the infrastructure in itself is sort of like self-sustaining. It exists and is replicated worldwide. And I guess by having blockchain, depending on what your reasons are, I guess if you were to share the information and track how it's shared, and if you were to include published papers that required licensing or royalty payments and whatnot, it doesn't necessarily always have to happen, but if it was royalty payments or if it was some form of token exchange, then I guess a blockchain mechanism could automatically do this. It wouldn't actually be an additional burden to an organization to have to maintain and track who's licensed what and what the royalty payments are, because within a blockchain solution you can actually have smart contracts which effectively atomically create a transaction, and it either contractually is complete or isn't complete in one go. So you couldn't have a person pay a number of tokens or a fee but not get the actual content, or give the content with the fear of not actually getting payment for it. So that's another one of the benefits of a blockchain sort of like solution. So moving on to hurdles, I guess any implementation of just about anything new has hurdles, and one of the hurdles, I guess, with any technology is regulation. Regulation's an interesting one because I guess every country is different with regard to regulation. So with regard to creating a system like this for information and searchability, and possibly including some personal information as well, regulation could be an interesting one because as an example, like in the European Union, there's recently a privacy regulation called GDPR, and I guess with regard to blockchain, it's kind of interesting because blockchain is inherently write once, read many times, so it's immutable. But with GDPR, it's kind of interesting because one of the requirements is to allow users to be in control of all their information, so they have the right to forget, request to be forgotten, or the right to edit information. But unfortunately, the way blockchain works is it's immutable, which obviously has its benefits but has its drawbacks as well. And so if a regulation requires that you need to be sort of like you need to adhere to these regulations, then it might actually be quite interesting, and it might be a bit of a hurdle, or it might be a bit of a hindrance to moving forward with such an implementation. But I guess things like blockchain and regulations like GDPR for privacy, they're all very new technologies, so I suppose we can't really be too fearful and stop before we even start. I guess we should sort of move forward slowly, experiment and see where things go. One of the other hurdles, I think, for such a blockchain strategy is the adoption. it's an ideal situation whereby all parties can actually contribute to this blockchain. But the reality is, I guess, everyone is actually quite self-preserving, and they actually want the information all to themselves, because each person wants their own system to be the ultimate system of record, I guess. So I guess one of the ways to work around this hurdle is to go for an open system, not a proprietary system. So if we make it open and adaptable for anyone to actually contribute to, and maybe even contribute to changes within the actual blockchain, then maybe all organizations would then actually slowly come on board, and then ultimately benefit doctors and thus patients in the long term. So I guess the next section is talking about steps with regard to how we actually move forward as a company to sort of adapt blockchain into our strategy. I guess the first things that we need to do is do a few proof of concepts, because proof of concepts actually allow you to discover what, on the one hand, theoretically you want to do, but you want to actually prove to yourself that these small units of functionality are actually doable and not problematic, and there's no unexpected hindrances to what you want to achieve. So some of the proof of concepts for the current proposed blockchain strategy could be a proof of concept to see if it's viable to validate the identity of specialist doctors, and then to associate it with information which could uniquely identify a document that they've created, whether it's a published paper or a Word document or a video, and then associate these together in a reasonably automated way before putting it in the blockchain. Other proof of concepts could entail the tokenization and smart contract mechanisms, because I guess there's probably various aspects and moving parts in the actual whole system with regard to exchanging tokens and the access to the actual material. It may actually work with a single author, but maybe there's complexities with regard to if a published paper or some material had multiple authors. Would our strategy actually work with regard to distributing these tokens amongst the various authors, for example, or how would we actually track who the authors are, because the authors might be actually within the actual document but may not be actually considered in our blockchain metadata information, for example. So I guess there are a number of proof of concepts that can be done, but they need to be done, and not all of them would work out. But I guess doing all these proof of concepts is an iterative and a learning process. And once we actually do them, whether they pass or they fail our theories and expectations, that's one thing. But I guess by starting now, we actually collect all these nuggets of information, and even though a specific proof of concept may not have actually worked this time round, the learnings from it could actually assist for future blockchain strategies in another concept, I guess. So that's pretty much it. I think hopefully I've explained how I'd like to get a blockchain strategy with regard to the distribution and searchability and sharing of information from specialist doctors to their peers, and to actually enhance an ecosystem which currently is very disparate in terms of assisting doctors to find the stuff. Thank you very much.